Okay, so this is a very unique trompo del pastor. So unique that a gentleman who was walking by, who we're going to call Andres for this illustration, saw the juicy trompo del pastor, ordered some tacos, devoured the tacos because they were so delicious, and then quickly ran up to the manager and was like, what did you guys do to make this meat so juicy and make so flavorful? To which the manager then replied, well, thank you, but actually, those are made out of wheat flour, and we're a vegan restaurant. We don't use any animal products. I heard this story from the manager of Por Siempre Vegana Taqueria in Mexico City. And like Andres, I was floored when I first saw this trompo del pastor because it was a bold statement of what veganism meant. To me, it was a representation that culture, traditions, and veganism could all coexist even if the ingredients were different. My name is Eunice Reyes, and I'm the content creator behind Rated V for Vegan, a social media platform that's dedicated to exciting people about plant-based food, and that it's not about missing out, but rather about discovery. And I always like to tell people that my goal is not to convert people, but rather provide positive experiences. So how did I get here? Sorry, I want to do a quick audio check because I hear humming. Are we still good? Okay, thank you. Okay, so how did I get here? Well, for context, I've been a huge foodie for a long time now. I'm the kind of person who likes watching food content. I love eating. I love cooking, watching cooking competitions. I come from a family where if we're cooking and eating all day, we'll be sitting on the couch full and we're already planning our meal for the next day. So in 2017, I was living in Seattle and I was working at corporate Nordstrom. And I wanted a creative outlet, and I guess I started my entrepreneurship journey by starting a t-shirt business. I thought it'd be cool to combine my love for food and fashion into one, and I started a foodie t-shirt brand called Le Foodie, the Food Tea. And although this t-shirt business lost me more money than it actually made me, it wasn't a complete waste because it allowed me to really get connected with the foodie community in Seattle that was living there at the time. And at the time in 2017, food content creators was really starting to become a thing. And if anybody remembers, Yelp Elite was also a thing. And I was definitely one of those Yelp Elite people. I would go to restaurants and review them and talk about what I love to eat. And I guess you could say my restaurant reviews time started there. I just really enjoyed it. Well, while I was enjoying my time trying all the food around Seattle and hanging out with my new foodie friends, one night, I decided I wanted to watch a documentary because I like watching food content. I stumbled upon the documentary, What the Health? And that documentary was like the nail on the coffin because I learned way too much information that night that I was not prepared for. And I felt like I could not unlearn what I had just learned. And I had felt a strong conviction to change my diet and my lifestyle. But let me elaborate a little bit why. So, from a young age, I was always into health and fitness. I remember reading Shape magazines and not only loving the fitness routines that were shared in there, but also the nutrition aspect. But also, I grew up in the Adventist church. And for those who may or may not know, the Adventist church advocates for a plant-based diet, not because it's a requirement. A lot of people do eat meat, but they advocate for it because there's a lot of benefits to a plant-based diet. So growing up, I would listen to health seminars and all the good reasons why it's great to eat vegetarian or vegan. And so growing up, me and my brothers loved Morningstar Grillers, for example. We loved veggie burgers. Like, we grew up eating carne asada and dairy and other kinds of meat, but we loved our veggie burgers. Also, I grew up in a Hispanic church, so potluck days at church were typically veggie meat mole or veggie meat enchiladas. And so me and my friends, even though we ate meat, we all knew food could taste good without meat or dairy. So you could say from a young age, we kind of had positive experiences. And also because I was into health and fitness, I was that friend that sometimes would come over to hang out and be like, guys, I made this cake, but guess what? It doesn't have eggs. I used flaxseed. And instead of frosting, I made out of coconut cream. So my friends were already familiar with me liking to cook vegan, vegetarian food at home. I was really into it, but I would eat meat when I went to restaurants because, I was restaurant hopping, doing all these reviews. I just loved trying new food. So I think that's what really hit hard when I saw that documentary because it really solidified a lot of things that I already knew. So what was I going to do now? Well, I for sure knew I wanted to be vegetarian. I think my goal eventually is to become vegan, but I still wasn't even sure I wanted to be 100% vegan. I was like, that's too much of a commitment right now. I'm going to at least try to be vegetarian. And like I mentioned before, when I would go eat, even though I was cooking vegetarian food at home, I would go out to eat meat at restaurants. Well, the interesting thing was at that time, I had become really good friends, and we're still really good friends to this day, with someone who was vegetarian. And so when we would hang out, we would go to restaurants, and I, of course, would eat vegetarian food at restaurants because I didn't want him to feel like he couldn't share his food or whatever. And so we would eat vegetarian food together. And that made me realize, I was like, wow, there's actually a lot of really good vegetarian vegan options here in Seattle. And also, when we would talk, he would tell me of why he was so convicted that a plant-based diet was so healthy and why he chose to. Keep in mind, he was not Christian, he was not Adventist, but he was telling me things that I kind of already knew that I was like, well, whatever, I just ignored it anyway. So I think that's another reason the documentary hit so hard, because it was like, this guy is telling me stuff that I already knew, but he's doing it way better than I ever could, right? So I was starting to post on my food t-shirt Instagram about vegan food that I was making at home, or vegetarian food, and vegetarian food that I was trying at restaurants. And then I remember thinking, okay, people didn't really sign up for this vegetarian vegan food content on this t-shirt page. They're probably here for the food puns, or who knows what else reason they're here for. But I thought to myself, maybe I should try creating a new Instagram page where I only share what vegan food and vegetarian food looks like here in Seattle. And so I took it to my new foodie friends. This was actually the same day that I talked to them about this idea. And I said, you guys, I'm thinking about starting this new Instagram page where I'm only showing vegan food, vegetarian food. And they're like, that's a great idea. No one's doing that here right now. There's actually a lot of plant-based options here in Seattle. You definitely should do it. And then one of the girls was like, you should call it Rated V for Vegan. And I was like, I love that name. So I was like, I'm keeping it, so I'm still using it to this day. So I was going to start creating food content around vegan food, or I was going to start creating content around vegan food, right? Vegetarian food also. But I knew that I didn't want to just be another recipe creator. Not because I didn't like cooking, but like I had mentioned before, I liked watching food shows. I felt like there wasn't any content out there that I wanted to watch. I was still consuming the same content. I was watching these food YouTubers and food travel shows and then being like, well, I can't eat that anymore. I can't eat that anymore. You know, I was like, that sucks. I was like, how come no one's really showing what I can eat at restaurants or in different cities? So then that's when I decided I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And I laugh now because I had no idea how to start a YouTube channel. I just knew that I had this enthusiasm for food. I didn't know how to edit. I didn't know anything about audio. I didn't know anything about video. I knew nothing. All I had was an iPhone 7, which had a camera. And I was like, I can record with this, right? And then my cousin was like, well, you should at least get a microphone. And I was like, all right. So I got a microphone and an iPhone rig. And in total, I think I invested like $75. And because I wanted low commitment. I wasn't 100% sure I wanted to do this. I just knew I wanted to try it out. So I decided to film Cinnaholic, and this YouTube video is still there up to this day, and I cringe every time I look at it, but I also like to keep it up there because it shows me how far I've come. During this time, Cinnaholic had just opened because it was this huge thing. They had just won Shark Tank. There was this new vegan cinnamon roll concept, right? Kind of like a Cinnabon, but all vegan. And I remember I walked up and they're like, hi, my name's Eunice. I started this YouTube channel, and I really want to show people what vegan food looks like. Like, will you let me film? I had like 10 subscribers. I had like, you know, it was probably just my friends. And they were like, yeah, okay, like go ahead. So I want to say that to encourage you guys that maybe you had this idea and you want to start and you don't know how. And it's 100% okay to start something completely messy and have no idea what you're doing, because you will figure it out along the way. And that's what I did, right? And if you guys want to know what my content looks like now, there's a new video coming out tomorrow, so you can check it out. But I was also still kind of figuring out the content style that I wanted. I knew that I liked this journalistic style approach. An inspiration of mine back then, and still to this day, was one called Food Insider. And what I really liked about their channels, they would go behind the scenes into restaurants, and they would share the stories about why they started their business and how the food was made. And I've always been really into that. So I decided that no matter what my style was, the thing I for sure wanted to do was break the stigma of what vegan food was. Because a lot of people thought it was like salad and vegetables, right? Like they were like, what's vegan food? And so I was like, actually, there's a lot, right? So fast forward to 2019, I was wanting kind of a career change, and I had already been working for Nordstrom for 9 years at that point. And a friend of mine knew what I was doing with the YouTube channel. She knew I loved to travel. I was traveling a lot already at that time. And she's like, hey, I'm going to do this English teaching program in Spain. You should apply and do it because it'll allow you to travel. You get time to work on your YouTube channel, and you'll until you figure things out. And I was like, you know what? That sounds like a great idea. I've always wanted to live in Europe, and the stars aligned all at that time. So I was like, let's go. So that allowed me to really see what vegan food was in different countries. And I'm not going to lie, I was nervous when I was going to move to Spain because I was like, are they even have foods for me there? This is the land of jamón we're talking about. Like, am I going to maybe start having to eat meat again? Or maybe I won't. I still wasn't 100% vegan. I wasn't vegan. I was vegetarian. I was starting to wean some stuff off, but I was still eating cheese and eggs every once in a while. So I was like, well, maybe I'll push that off. But when I got there, I remember, to my surprise, there's a lot of vegan options over there. And not only did they have 100% vegan restaurants, but there was vegan options at other restaurants, and there was like plant-based milks at a lot of the bars and restaurants. And I was like, wow. I was like, I was not expecting this. And that made me even more excited to want to share about it, because a lot of times people think that vegan food is a restrictive diet, when really it's about discovering. So this is some of the food that I've shot while I was there in my early YouTube days there. So they have like the Spanish tortilla, that's vegan shrimp made of konjac root. But like I mentioned, a lot of times people think it's restricted. They're like, how are you going to be vegetarian or vegan in Spain? That must be so hard. And I'm like, no. So I think part of the reason I was so excited to talk about the plant-based food I was finding is because I wanted to encourage people, like, you do not have to worry or be scared to travel just because you have a different dietary preference than everybody else. And this changed a lot about how I share my values, my beliefs, right? So there's a running joke in the vegan community that says that you'll know someone's vegan because they're going to tell you they're vegan. And a lot of times I've noticed that overall people tend to become vegan for 1 to 3 things: because of the health, the animals, or sustainability. And whether you like the term or not, vegans actually are really good evangelists because they can't help but want to share their transformation story of why they became vegan. And usually it's very impactful in their lives. Like, for example, I have a best friend, had severe acne all of her life, would be on Accutane. And one day she decided, you know what, I'm just going to try this plant-based thing because someone keeps recommending it. All of a sudden her skin clears up. She no longer needs that medication, right? I remember I was also talking to another lady who, she was struggling to have a baby. And she decided, you know what, let me try this plant-based thing. All of a sudden, a few months later, she conceived. So it's all these crazy stories, and they can't help but want to share that because it's so impactful, right? But within the plant-based community, I've also noticed there's different levels of ways people like to communicate their beliefs and their values. And some of them, in my opinion, are not the most effective ways. For example, there's the hardcore animal rights activists. Now, don't get me wrong. I also believe there needs to be an awareness about animal cruelty, because it is very heartbreaking once you find out what happens to all these animals, factory farming, etc. However, when it's presented in a way where you're guilting and shaming people for what they're doing, and they may not think they're doing something wrong. Like, their truth is, well, eating meat is healthy. Like, what am I doing wrong, right? And if you're accusing them of, well, you're a murderer, you know how many animals you're slaughtering, you eat that steak that you're eating. It's like that. They're not going to feel welcomed to even try vegan food or become vegan if you're accusing them of being this bad person. Then there's the super cautious vegans who are really particular about where they eat. They don't want to eat at non-vegan restaurants because they're afraid of cross-contamination. And they're like, well, they use the same grill and everything. Like, we don't want that. Or they're judgmental sometimes of the people who do go to those kind of restaurants because they don't think they're being cautious enough. And then there's the creators who are the people who genuinely just want to show you how delicious vegan food can be. And it's like a safe space for you to try it. We do not care if you eat meat in front of us. That's 100% okay. It's a funny question. People always ask me, like, can I eat meat in front of? Like, yeah, fine. Like it's okay. But we give them a safe space. And if anything, like, let's say my friend orders a cheeseburger and I order the vegan option, I'd be like, hey, do you want to try some? They're like, yeah. 9 times out of 10, they're always very curious to try my food too. And they try it. And they're always like, that's really good. Like, thanks for letting me try that. Okay. And they'll go out to eat with me and try different foods. or through the content I'm sharing, they'll be like, that looks really good. Like, I know I'm used to eating like beef tacos, but those mushroom tacos look really good and I kind of want to try them. To the point where it gets to them having enough positive experiences that when they're out on their own, they're more likely to start ordering their own vegan options. With like, that thing Eunice had me try was really good. I'm going to try it again at this restaurant. And eventually, what I've also noticed is they start asking questions. They'll be like, so why did you become vegan? Like, and it kind of creates the safe space for a good conversation to happen. And that's where you can really share about what convicted you and what changes you saw in your life. And again, it's just a very welcoming environment. And I have an example too. Recently, this just happened. I was in Mexico City and I was with one of my best friends who is vegan. And then I was with another best friend and his family, but they weren't vegan, right? So we were all hanging out one day and we were hungry. We're all looking for something to eat. And as a vegan, you get used to learning that you have to just fend for yourself. You have to look for your food. So initially, me and my friend were going to be like, oh, well, we might have to break off and like go find a vegan restaurant. But then we're like, you know what? We're all together in a group. The whole point is to commune and dine together. Like, and so maybe we can find something we can all eat at. And obviously being in Mexico City, some of the best things you can do is find street food or food stalls, right? Like that's some of the best culinary experiences. So like, well, maybe we can find something here. So my best friend, she's like, have you ever had gorditas? And I was like, no. I was like, I've always seen them as wannabe pupusas, so I'm down. So we found some food stalls that seemed pretty busy and we looked at the menu. We're like, oh, one of the fillings is beans and potatoes. So we asked, we still did our due diligence, like, hey, does the masa or the beans have manteca, which is lard? And they were like, no, it's fine. We're like, okay. So the only difference technically that wasn't perfect was they were using the same comal for all the tortillas and they were frying everything in the same oil. But for me, I was like, that's no big deal. They're frying it within masa anyway, so it's not a big, like, I didn't care. And so I ended up trying that. And by the way, if you guys have never had a fried gordita, like this thing is amazing. It was one of like the top 3 things I ate that whole weekend. And the reason I bring up this story is because I had it, it was delicious. I even gave it to my friend and his family. They were like, this was really good. They had their meat option and they tried mine. They're like, that was really good. So does this make me less of a vegan because I ate at a place that technically had cross-contamination and it wasn't like a perfect vegan dining experience? No, I don't think it makes me less of a vegan. If anything, I think I elevated the culinary experience and showed my friend and his family that you can eat vegan and this is the variety. This is how different it can look. So this also really has taught me about sharing my Christian belief. So for starters, guilting and shaming people is never going to feel them welcome to want to even learn more about Christianity. And second, guilting and shaming is not what Christianity is all about anyways, to begin with. It always pushes people away no matter what good intention you have, right? And then there's the perfect approach. There is no such thing as a perfect Christian. So if you have this judgmental approach towards people who have different belief systems than you, or trying to prove them wrong for something they're doing, or thinking, you really shouldn't do it that way, that's also not going to make them feel welcome. And if anything, we do ourselves a disservice when we don't associate ourselves with people who have different backgrounds and belief systems than we do, because we can really learn from each other. Some of my best friends do not identify as Christian, and sometimes they teach me a thing or two about being more Christ-like. I'll be like, this person's very hospitable. I should be more like that. Or you know what? They had a really positive character during that moment. I need to learn from that, And then there's the invitation approach where you just really meet people where they are. And you create a safe space and you just provide them positive experiences. You let them be who they are and you understand where they come from. And if you know anything about the Bible and the story of Jesus, that's the kind of person that he was. He met people where they were at. And I didn't mention this earlier, but actually through this whole content creation journey, I've now had the opportunity to start to lead out vegan international tours. And the last tour that I went on in Vietnam, half the group wasn't even vegan. They weren't even vegetarian. They're like diehard carnivores. But because they know me and they know my personality, they felt welcome enough to come on this trip. They were like, yeah, we'll eat vegan food for a week, because they knew that's what the food that was going to be served. Outside of the tour activities, they were going to eat meat. They're Vietnam, I'm sure they're curious. But they knew that they could do that. And the cool thing to me was that at the end of the trip, they were all like, we learned so much about veganism through the other people who were on the tour. They're like, we learned a lot of things that you guys have to go through when going out to eat. And also, I realized how little vegetables I eat, and I think is the most vegetables I've eaten in a long time. My digestion's better. Another one was like, I think I'm going to start cooking more plant-based at home, more healthy, or the vegan option tasted better than the meat option that I've had. So they all had positive experiences. Did I expect them to become vegan after this tour? No. Do I think they're ever going to be 100% vegan? I don't know, but I know for sure that they had a positive experience, and they're more likely to try vegan food again because of that experience. So I want to end this message by saying that maybe you're not Christian, or you know somebody who's not Christian. And maybe you've met people along the way that have tried to make you feel guilty or ashamed, or maybe they try to make you feel like you need to be perfect. Well, today you can ignore all of that. And you are 100% welcome to be curious and start your own exploration journey about God. Maybe you've wondered, I wonder if prayer works. I wonder if there's a benefit to like knowing a higher being or believing in one. And that's okay. You can do that because you never know, you might have a positive experience. Thank you guys. So now we're actually going to do Q&A. That's the time has been given to me. Sorry, I was like freaking out because I felt like this thing is falling while I was talking. So, but if you guys have any questions, I would love to hear them. Any?
Bring in the mic. So have you ever, testing. Have you ever made your own gluten steaks?
I have tried, I haven't made steaks. No, ever since this video, when I filmed this video, I was like, I need to make this at home. Because I wish you guys could see. I mean, the video's on YouTube. It's vegan in Mexico City, if you look it up on YouTube. But I remember filming them, and the seitan meat was so thin, it really looked like carne asada. I was like, wow. Like, I was just so blown away. And so I tried making a seitan, like chicken meat, but I had not tried that. I've been wanting to do it because I kind of miss the park cookouts for like birthdays.
But using wheat flour, my wife makes these, and she's actually full meat eaters.
Yeah. Oh, really? I learned from your wife. Do workshops. Right. Good.
Hi, Eunice.
Hi.
In the year 2013, you had Indian dinner with a bunch of youth, with a few people you might remember. And Indian food's amazing. At that time, your order was...
Context. Eli and I grew up in the same church. We go way back. We also had that veggie meat mole.
It looks like you ordered tandoori chicken that day.
Yeah, I wasn't vegan then.
A real question. How do you find, because then when you go across cultures, when you're trying to share other people's food, there's something about ownership, about their culinary expression of what their food is like.
Yes.
Right? Whether it's Mexican food, whether it's food from Spain, from Greek food. Is that part of how you choose what you choose to present to also be reflective in what you present and how you communicate that portion of what veganism can look like?
Yes, I love that you brought that up because I like to share. I don't remember if it's all a blur now, so I don't remember if I already said this in my presentation, but I always often share that the whole mission of my platform also is to show that vegan food is woven into every culture and it's not about missing out. So some of the content I'm most passionate about, like the last 2 YouTube videos I did, one of them was at a Thai restaurant, and how she recreates authentic traditional Thai dishes using only plant-based ingredients. And same, the one that's coming out tomorrow is that from a Vietnamese bakery, Banh Mi. For those that don't know, Buddhist monks have been the OG culinary chefs of mock meats. They've been working with wheat, gluten for a long time. So a lot of people think that it's this modern thing. No, they've been perfecting it for centuries. So that's actually very traditional too, so I think a lot, and my favorite part is showing that you don't have to give up any of the food that you grew up with just because you're going plant-based. You just have to reinvent it, right? Like when I went vegan, I remember the moment that the thought crossed my mind, am I going to have to stop eating pupusas? And I was like, no, I'm just going to make them vegan. And by vegan, I'm not just gonna eat only bean pupusas because that's half the fun. Half the fun of the pupusas is the cheese. So I've been working on that. Now I'm teaching vegan pupusa classes. Like it's just the whole journey of how this has taken me, but it's really inspired other people to be like, oh wow, I don't have to give up anything. I was just in a restaurant too with my family and my tias. They made me vegan tamales. They made me veganized versions of everything. I was spoiled. And I have been very fortunate to have a supportive family who just loves food. They just love to eat. So as long as it's good, they're like, yeah, we'll eat it. And they're almost excited to experiment with it too. So I'm really grateful for that, because anytime I go to family gatherings, they always have a vegan version for me. But I have basically veganized 90% of the food that I grew up with. So it's fun. So thank you, because I like to show that it can be woven into every culture.
Hi, Eunice. It's Heidi. Hi. We were trying to figure out the other day how long we've known each other, and I'd forgotten about the T-shirt venture. And so that's where I think I first met you, after Auburn Academy. So I'm really proud of how you've grown and how you've matured with your voice. And that's where my question comes in. What have you learned the most from transitioning your voice from the T-shirt business to the food review business to now Ready to Be for Vegans? How did you find your voice in those times?
I want to say that my voice has always been the same. The product kind of just changed. I don't know. Like with the T-shirt business, I knew I still wanted to share my love for food. And it was funny because when I was writing this presentation, I was like, this community thing has been with me for a long time. So I've been leading out community events. And when I used to go to Volunteer Park Church in Seattle, I was social chair. And that photo shoot that we did with the T-shirts that you saw everybody wearing the Christmas hats, I organized that with a friend. And I was like, I just realized, like, I've been doing this whole community building thing a long time. I tend to like to bring people together. And I think that's why I like sharing about food, because who doesn't like to sit at a table together and eat a lot of food? That's like one of my favorite things when you're with your friends and you're like, let's just order a bunch of things and just eat and talk. And so I think, I don't know, I guess that's always kind of been my voice, is to share how fun it can be, how fun life can be through food, and how sharing different cultures can be through food. Everything's good. There's always stories to tell through food, right? And if you've ever, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, like when you're trying to get to know somebody from a different culture and you're asking them questions, once you ask them or tell them you're familiar with a food from their culture, their face will light up and they'll be like, oh yeah. And they'll just start talking about like their favorite foods, right? So I always like doing that. I don't know if that kind of answers your question for one on tangent, but.
Eunice, thank you so much. I wanted to ask you a question. You have amazing followers. You have like 30, 40,000 followers. Not everyone has that, but everyone's trying to kind of increase their reach or their engagement. What would you say is like what would you say to a young creator who's trying to get there, right?
Yeah.
Is it just consistency? Is it like passion? Is it like great personality? You have a great personality. You're passionate about something. Is it just sticking with it? Like, did you just catch a big break? Like, what would you say is the component to like expanding your reach?
I would say consistency for sure, because and passion, because if you're in it for the numbers at the beginning, you're going to give up. Because there was many times I wanted to give up. There's many times where I was like, no one's even watching these videos. I don't even know if I want to do this. But because I had this strong passion of like, I really just enjoy sharing about this. Like, I create content that I genuinely enjoy. Like, it's content that I wish I could watch, or stories that I like to learn. Like the restaurants that I've chosen recently to film is because I love their story and I just wanted to genuinely share it. So you have to have the passion for it. You have to know your why. If you are familiar with Simon Sinek, you have to know your why. Once you know your why, that will come through in your content. And you have to be consistent. And by consistent, it doesn't mean you have to post every single day. I think at the beginning of a channel, it does help. At the early stages of my YouTube channel, I was posting every week. And now I'm like, how did I do that? I don't even know how I did that. But Instagram as well, the more often you post, the more you're in people's faces, because that's what Instagram wants, right? They want people to post content to you. They're constantly feeding people content. But, 3 times a week is more than plenty as well. And don't get discouraged if you don't see the numbers that you want. But at the same time, the other important thing is structure. There's a reason people say have a hook. You kind of do that. You have 3 seconds nowadays, if that, to capture someone's attention. And you have to see it from their point of view. I've learned that content creation is a little bit kind of like servant leadership in the sense that you don't make content about yourself. It may seem like it's about you because you're the brand, but it's not about you at all. It's about providing value to your audience. So in my case, I'm constantly posting things about itineraries. Here is your 72-hour itinerary in Mexico City or 36 hours in Barcelona, vegan. And I not only include what to eat because I know that's what my audience likes to look, but I throw in some tourism activities because you got to do something in between your meals. Otherwise, you can't keep eating all the time. So to me, I'm providing value, or recipes also. That's value, how to teach, the teaching recipes of what to do at home. So just think of it as always serving your audience. Give them information that they can use, because if they save it or interact with it, that favors the algorithm, that pushes it. So those are some things to keep in mind. Just stick with it too.
I'm going to throw my own question in here. How do you talk to other vegans? I think there's a lot of overlap with church people. So when we think about fear-based ideologies, when we think about shame-driven ideologies, behind the scenes, how do you interact with other people that may not have the same method as you?
I let them be like that. At the end of the day, even though I don't agree with their method, because I've definitely met other content creators who are hardcore, they do content on today we're gonna go protest because Prada just launched a new fur line, and then we're gonna go and throw blood at their stuff. It's hardcore stuff. I'm like, wow, okay. But in person, they're a nice person. Even though I don't agree with their method, I'm just, I listen to them whenever. I'm not going to judge them. It's not my method at all. I actually recently got approached to help interact with this one certain content that came off a little aggressive. And I was like, no, they were willing to pay me too. And I was like, it's okay. I was like, it's not really my style. That's not my approach. So I'll pass, right? So I think just maintaining your integrity, and also, again, having that safe space approach where that applies to people who even have your same beliefs. It'll still be different, but you got to give them that safe space to have that. You don't have to agree with them. I think you got to have these spaces. We agree to disagree, but I guess that's the way I interact with them.
So you've gotten a lot of very thought-provoking questions, and this is not going to be one of them. So I grew up vegetarian, and my parents always joked that the reason we weren't a vegan was because they couldn't give up cheese.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite brand of vegan cheese?
Okay. So okay, let me start with this. I used to hate Daya. When I first had Daya, I was like, Daya hates vegans. I was like, this is disgusting. They have since then reformulated their recipe, and now it's chickpea based so it's gotten better. I opt for my pupusa class. I buy the Trader Joe's vegan mozzarella, which I think they took that from Follow Your Heart, but that's a whole nother thing. But Follow Your Heart's another good one. Vivan cheese is another good one. Vivan is a company based out of Wisconsin, and we all know Wisconsin is a cheese. So they're from there because that was their goal, to make it more realistic like cheese. So I would say Vivan and the Trader Joe's and Follow Your Heart, and now Daya is pretty good too. And if you guys are ever if you're looking for artisan style cheeses like Brie or all that, Rebel cheese will blow your mind. It will blow your mind. It tastes exactly like Brie. It tastes like all the vegan cheeses the cheeses that you love. But they were also on Shark Tank. Fun fact. But yeah, those are some of my favorites.
Amiguita. Hi. What is your next, or what is your dream as a content creator?
Oh my gosh. So I would say one of my biggest dreams is to have a vegan food travel show. So even though I'm kind of doing things like that on YouTube, I think that's the big dream that almost seems impossible and far away. But yeah, if I'm going to say that's my dream, that's my dream.
All right, we got time for one or two more. Yes.
I haven't actually seen your content yet, but I plan on looking into it. in regards to using veganism and travel and all, food and stuff like that, how do you pour your faith into that and into what you present to the audience, to the people?
Yeah, so actually, it's funny because I don't really talk about it on my platform. And a part of me feels like, I know this might sound weird, but I don't feel like I need to. Like, I'm not afraid to share my background of how the Animal Church did have an influence on me wanting to eat more plant-based because I learned a lot from it. But I know that my platform talks about vegan food and community and travel, and I'm getting people from all over the spectrum. There's no reason I need to start pushing my faith on them. But I'm also not afraid to share that I am a person of faith, if it feels applicable, right? And I'm more of an in-person person when it comes to talking about those topics. There's been a few times where I share, like, I'm at a church potluck, look at all the vegan options, you know? And so, but I think and the way I do incorporate sharing my faith is by having a very welcoming personality and no judgment. I think that just through that alone, it kind of shows what I believe in, right? Even if I'm not directly talking about my beliefs and like, let me tell you why I'm vegan, but yeah, so I guess that's the way I kind of approach it.
All right, we got one more. Yeah, Joey.
Hi, I'm curious as to whether when you're doing reviewing or just going to eat somewhere, whether there's cities or regions that you just kind of have to skip that you just can't do. As I'm vegan kind of not by choice, and so when I'm traveling, there's things that are generally safe.
Yeah.
And when you're in a place like Portland, super easy.
Yeah.
But when you're in rural America or some places, even Cannon Beach, I was surprised. There's really no good option. You can find something that's like technically vegan, but it's just not it. It's not it, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do in those kind of places?
So it depends. Like if I know I'm going to a place like that, I'll like pack my own food. Like even on plane trips. Oh my gosh, if you guys want a recommendation for a really good sandwich, stick on the plane, I got that for you. Anyways, but a lot of times I'll make my own food and we'll take it. Or you kind of do, you start learning how to piece things together. Like, unfortunately, some of the best vegan options that some people have is French fries and salad. It's not the best, but and I don't like doing it. Or you go to a restaurant, you get the beans and the rice, maybe even the rice, because sometimes there's chicken broth in it. But sometimes you do have to get creative and like look at sides or ask later. But I almost never encounter that because I'm the kind of person that does a lot of research ahead of time. If I know I'm going to like a place like Cannon Beach that doesn't have I'm already looking at 10 different restaurant menus nearby to see like what they have. If not, I'm going to bring my own food. And so I never want to skip visiting a place just because they don't have food. If worst case, I bring my own, but it hasn't really happened. I typically can always find something. Like I remember I was in a town with my friends in Spain, and this is outside of the bigger city, so they didn't really have much. But I think this is also a great part because you start learning what's traditionally vegan, even though they don't realize it's vegan. So in Spain, a lot of times they'll give you verduras a la plancha. So they'll just grill a bunch of vegetables for you. And they eat that a lot too. And so they'll have that on hand. And so I remember one time at that like really small city in Spain, I remember I just asked for a bunch of vegetables and they grilled them for me. I had eggplant, red bell pepper, but and it was delicious. They gave me bread, olive oil, and I was like, this is really good. Like it may seem simple, but it was delicious. So, and they gave me potatoes. So you get creative, and like that's where I think you get to learn about what different cultures have to offer of what you can eat. So that's where you can really discover what you can actually eat.
All righty, give it up for Eunice. Woo, thank you, Eunice.